What up, comic book community? I'm EQ, this is True Believer Comics, and I need to tell you something. Stop slabbing your comic books unless you know why, what, and how. Let's talk about it. So before we get started, I wanted to thank you guys for tapping in, tuning in, and supporting a brother on his comic book YouTube journey. It means the most to me. And stay tuned to the end because we're talking about slabs, and I'm going to reveal my personal first slab that I've ever submitted to CGC. I know, I've been a collector for over 20 years, but I've always been a raw collector and just never had that ultimate desire to get something slabbed until I found my reason why I should. So we've all been on YouTube and we see the trends going around on TikTok and Instagram. A lot of people are telling you not to slab your comic books. And I gotta say, some of the things that they talk about are true. But I think that there are only a few reasons and ways that you can slab your comic books that can alleviate some of the disappointment or hype up some of the excitement that you originally had when you thought about slabbing your comic books. So you're ready to get your first comic book slabbed. The main question that I get at the comic book booth, Bam Splat Pal, booth 133, Frankenstein Collectible Show, City of Industry, California, plug, EQ. Should I slab my comic books? In my personal opinion, there's only two reasons why you should slab your comic books. No specific order, but number one, you're anticipating some type of value being added on to said comic book from slabbing it from either CGC, CBCS, and now PSA. There are others, but those are the three kind of highest ranking grading systems that the comic book community has chosen. So to dive deeper on that, let's say you have a ASM 300 and you're expecting that because you get it slabbed and hopefully, keyword, hopefully you get the highest grade that's possible, then that book would hold more value and attract more attention, possibly to resell later down the line. And while that can be true, it doesn't mean that it is true. Going back to the if, hopefully, you get the highest grade possible, you could send in your book. It could get a lower grade than what you think and what's attractive to the current comic book market. So you could actually be trapping yourself into a situation of the comic book not holding a certain value. So there's definitely a situation where I would highly recommend you sending in your comic books to get slabbed, and that's when it comes to signature authentication. So when it comes to CGC, they've partnered up with JSA to authenticate signatures for all their slab submissions, i.e. the gold label that you see on most CGC signed books. But if that signature can't be authenticated, you might have just wasted money on the CGC fees and the additional JSA fees. So you might want to think about it a little bit before you submit. Let's just say it does get authenticated and you get a CGC 9.8 signed JSA gold label book. That definitely has increased the market value for a good comic book. So since we're talking about value, we gotta kind of talk about demand. And this is where I will agree with a lot of the comic book professional influencers, is that comic book slabs are harder and slower to sell. It takes a very serious comic book collector or enthusiastic enthusiast to buy a slabbed comic book. Most casual collectors to collectors midway through their journey are a lot more hesitant to buy a $300, $500, $800 and more great comic book at a high grade slab book. But that same comic book, a couple $100 less, or maybe even at a lower grade, is very attractive to those casual and mid-journey collectors. So if you're thinking about slabbing your comic book solely for the value, just remember, it has a lot to depend on what book, when is that book in demand, the grade of that comic book, and the market for slabs if you're thinking about reselling it. And a lot of these things fluctuate throughout time, so after you do get it slabbed, you might just have to hold tight, dig in and wait for the perfect opportunity to see that value actually happen. But now the other side of the coin, and my personal choice on why to slab a comic book, is because you love that comic. That comic could still be a valuable one, a key issue that could hold value throughout a long time based on the character, the story, the writer, the artist. But the fact that you love it means that you want it to stay in the same condition as you bought it for as long as humanly possible. And what better way than to put it into a capsule that all of these companies provide. And I just heard that PSA's capsule, I've seen on a couple of videos too, how durable they are and that they're UV protected. That means you could put it up on your wall in a sunny room and the color won't deteriorate throughout time, as it's been for as long as comic grading has been a thing. We are living through the comic book grading and capsuling evolution as I speak right now. We talked about the why to slab your comic books. Let's talk about one thing that's a why not. One of the main reasons that I see, and I discuss this with a lot of people that come into the comic book booth, is that they're like, EQ, but I want to enjoy. I want to read my comic books. Why would I put them in a slab forever? I agree 100%. Comic books were meant to be read. They were meant to be enjoyed. They have pages for a reason, so you can flip through and see the art that's within inside. So let me give you a solution. And at the same time, I'm going to show you the results of my very first CGC submission, Wolverine #1 from the Frank Miller limited series. I love this book, this cover, since I was a child. It's a 9.4. Now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna explain to you my reaction of the 9.4 later. Because some people are like, oh my God, you got a 9.4, that's so awesome. Yes, it is. I'll explain my thoughts on that later. And every time I walk into my comic book room, it brings me so much joy. So much joy. Yes, the value is holding. Yes, I do expect for this book to gain more value just because of Wolverine becoming, and always has been becoming, one of the most popular characters in comic book history. It brings me joy because I love this book. And I have the other copy that I can always go to. This copy is a very good copy too. This might be like I thought a 9.6, 9.4. This one I thought was gonna get a 9.8, and I still might break it open and resubmit it to get that 9.8. What I would suggest is that you go even a lower grade on your raw copy that you're gonna be reading and enjoying, and then if you do come up on a high grade copy, send that to get slabbed. Also, we have this aftermarket plastic that keeps the slab from getting scratched up, and this plastic never comes off even if it's on my wall. That will make sure that this slab holds value even still, because no one wants to buy a scratched up slab. This is facts. So I'm gonna put that right back up here to tell you a little bit about the journey of my first CGC submission. To get some advice, and I submit through the comic book booth that I work at, me and my comic book mentor, Jeff Dixon, went over these two books with a fine comb. There was one imperfection on the raw copy, but we still kind of projected that to be a 9.6. We looked that book up and down, the one that's slabbed, and we could not find a single imperfection that would stop it from getting a 9.8. But after it came back, it hit a 9.4. So what do I do now? Do I crack it open and do I resubmit? I want you guys to leave a comment right now below and let me know what you think I should do, and I'll reveal that in a future video. And while you're here, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that little bell notification thing. Every view, every comic book community person that I touch, that I inspire, that supports this channel, it means everything in the world to me. So to all my comic fans, all my comic collectors, and comic professionals, I'm EQ. This is True Believer Comics. And like always, love, peace, wisdom, and strength.